My wife is Amy Grant, fellow singer and songwriter, and as far as the record, it's just a testament to how much I care about her, how dear she is to me in my life.
For decades, Vince Gill has been one of the most respected names in country music. His voice has become instantly recognizable, his guitar playing legendary, and his reputation almost unmatched. With more than 20 Grammy Awards and countless hit songs, he's built a career that most musicians can only dream about. Yet despite all of that success, one question has quietly followed him for years. How did one of country music's biggest stars end up becoming part of one of the greatest rock bands ever assembled? When Glenn Frey passed away in 2016, many believed the Eagles had reached the end of their journey. Fans couldn't imagine the legendary group continuing without one of its founders. Even Don Henley openly questioned whether the band could ever perform again after losing such an important voice. Behind closed doors, however, conversations had already begun that would completely reshape the band's future. The name that kept coming up wasn't another rock legend. It wasn't someone who had spent decades trying to imitate the Eagles' sound. It was Vince Gill. To many fans, the idea sounded almost impossible. After all, Vince was known as one of country music's finest performers. The Eagles represented classic rock royalty. On paper, the combination seemed unexpected. But those closest to the band saw something entirely different. Long before anyone discussed replacing Glenn Frey on stage, Vince had already built genuine friendships with members of the Eagles. After the band's breakup years earlier, he and Glenn Frey even shared the same management. The connections had been there all along, even if the public never noticed them. Then came the phone call. Irving Azoff, the Eagles' longtime manager, reached out through Vince's management team. There was no elaborate audition, no competition against dozens of famous musicians. Instead, they simply wanted to know one thing. Would Vince Gill be willing to help carry the band's legacy forward? Years later, Vince admitted that becoming an Eagle wasn't something he had ever imagined. It wasn't a lifelong dream or a goal written on a list somewhere. It simply happened. His response was immediate. When do we leave? That simple answer revealed everything about his approach. He wasn't joining for fame. He wasn't trying to replace Glenn Frey. He understood something many critics overlooked. Nobody could replace Glenn Frey. Instead, Vince believed his responsibility was much simpler: to honor the music. That mindset shaped everything he did. Rather than reinventing the Eagles' greatest hits, Vince carefully studied every arrangement. Songs like Lion Eyes, New Kid in Town, Take It to the Limit, and Tequila Sunrise carried decades of memories for millions of listeners. Changing them would have disappointed the fans who loved them. So Vince made a conscious decision: play them exactly as audiences remembered. He later explained that the iconic harmonies, background vocals, and carefully crafted arrangements were part of what made those records timeless. His job wasn't to improve them, it was to preserve them. That attitude earned enormous respect from both longtime Eagles fans and the band itself. Don Henley offered perhaps the strongest endorsement anyone could receive. When people questioned why the Eagles would choose a country singer, Henley's answer was surprisingly simple: because he knows how to be in a band. Those few words explained everything. Technical ability wasn't the issue. Plenty of musicians could sing the songs or play the guitar parts. What mattered was humility. Vince never wanted to become the center of attention. He has often admitted that he doesn't need the spotlight. He's perfectly comfortable serving the music instead of serving his own ego. Ironically, that's exactly what made him the perfect fit. His first performance with the Eagles took place at Dodger Stadium in 2017. An evening filled with emotion. Standing beside him was Glenn Frey's son, Deacon Frey. For fans, the concert represented far more than another reunion show. It symbolized the band's willingness to move forward while still honoring its past. Every note carried emotional weight. Every song reminded audiences of Glenn's legacy. And throughout the performance, Vince never tried to make the night about himself. Instead, he quietly became part of something much larger. Years later, fans would come to appreciate just how difficult that role truly was. Joining one of the greatest bands in music history is challenging enough. Joining after the death of one of its founders is something else entirely. Yet Vince handled it with remarkable grace. His calm personality, respect for tradition, and genuine appreciation for the Eagles' music allowed him to win over even skeptical fans. While his professional life continued reaching incredible heights, another chapter of Vince Gill's story was quietly unfolding away from the concert stage. It involved someone who would eventually become the love of his life. Amy Grant. Their first meeting happened in 1993 during the filming of a Christmas television special in Tulsa, Oklahoma. At the time, both were already successful artists. Neither expected that one simple meeting would eventually change their lives forever. According to Vince, Amy walked into rehearsal looking slightly worried. Trying to ease the tension, he smiled and told her, "Unknit that brow. It's going to be okay." Neither of them knew it then, but those few words would become the beginning of one of music's most enduring love stories. They soon performed together several times that year before recording their duet, House of Love. Musically, everything clicked almost instantly. Personally, however, life was far more complicated. Both were married to other people. Rather than rushing into anything, they respected those commitments. Even though many people could sense the chemistry between them, both Vince and Amy chose patience over impulse. That decision wasn't always easy. Amy later admitted the connection between them was obvious to everyone involved. Still, they refused to let emotions dictate their actions. Unfortunately, public speculation told a very different story. Rumors spread. People assumed the worst. Vince later reflected that many judged them unfairly without knowing the full truth. For years, they quietly carried that burden while trying to do what they believed was right. Neither could predict how dramatically life would eventually change. As the years passed, both marriages came to an end through separate circumstances. Only then did Vince and Amy finally allow themselves to explore the relationship that had been patiently waiting in the background for so long. But even after finding happiness together, they had no idea that life would soon test their marriage in ways neither could have imagined. After years of waiting, Vince Gill and Amy Grant were finally free to build a life together. In March 2000, surrounded by close family and friends, they married during an intimate outdoor ceremony near Nashville. It wasn't a celebrity spectacle or a headline-grabbing event. Instead, it reflected exactly who they were, two people who had chosen patience over publicity and authenticity over attention. Their children were part of the ceremony, symbolizing not just the beginning of a marriage but the blending of two families. Looking back, it's easy to see why so many people admire their relationship today. It wasn't built overnight. It had been tested long before they ever exchanged vows. For years, life seemed to settle into a comfortable rhythm. Both continued recording music, touring, and supporting one another's careers. Whenever they appeared together, fans noticed something refreshing. There was no competition between them. Neither seemed interested in overshadowing the other. Instead, they celebrated each other's successes. But as many families eventually discover, even the strongest relationships are tested when unexpected health problems arrive. That moment came in 2020. Ironically, everything began with what should have been an ordinary medical appointment. Vince was attending a routine checkup when his doctor casually suggested that Amy schedule one herself. There was no emergency, no obvious warning signs. Simply seemed like good advice. That simple recommendation changed everything. After undergoing further examinations, doctors discovered Amy had been living with a rare congenital heart condition known as partial anomalous pulmonary venous return, or PAPVR. The condition had existed since birth, yet she had spent decades without realizing it. The diagnosis came as a complete shock. Even more alarming was what doctors explained next. Without treatment, the condition could eventually become life-threatening. Suddenly, the couple found themselves facing a situation they never expected. In June 2020, during one of the most uncertain periods in recent history, Amy underwent open-heart surgery. The timing made everything even more difficult. Hospitals were operating under strict COVID-19 restrictions, limiting visitors and separating families during some of life's most frightening moments. For Vince, those restrictions were incredibly painful. Like any devoted husband, he wanted to remain by Amy's side every step of the way. Instead, he often found himself waiting anxiously, hoping for updates while hospital policies kept loved ones apart. Eventually, he was allowed limited visits, but the experience reminded both of them just how fragile life can be. Thankfully, Amy's surgery was successful. Recovery wasn't immediate, but together they slowly began rebuilding their normal lives. One unexpected blessing emerged from the difficult period. With concerts canceled because of the pandemic, Vince's schedule suddenly cleared. Rather than spending months traveling from city to city, he was able to devote nearly all of his time to helping Amy heal. For a couple accustomed to balancing demanding careers, those quiet months became unexpectedly meaningful. Unfortunately, life wasn't finished testing them. Just when things appeared to be improving, another crisis struck. In July 2022, Amy was enjoying a bicycle ride near a golf course when tragedy unfolded in an instant. She hit a pothole. The impact threw her from the bicycle despite wearing a protective helmet. The accident resulted in a serious brain injury. She was rushed to the hospital, leaving family, friends, and fans deeply concerned. Once again, Vince made his priorities perfectly clear. He immediately canceled several scheduled concerts. Music could wait. His wife could not. Recovery proved far more challenging than anyone anticipated. Amy experienced memory problems as doctors estimated her brain could require well over a year to heal fully. Simple conversations became difficult. Remembering everyday events wasn't always easy. Adding to the challenge, she later underwent additional surgeries, including procedures involving her throat and shoulder. It seemed as though every time one obstacle disappeared, another appeared. Throughout every setback, Vince remained exactly where he believed he belonged. Beside her, he frequently reminded Amy to focus on one day at a time, encouraging her with quiet reassurance instead of dramatic speeches. Those simple words carried enormous meaning. Amy later admitted that hearing Vince tell her he loved her every day became one of the greatest sources of strength during her recovery. Moments like those reveal far more about a person than awards or record sales ever could. While millions know Vince Gill for his voice, those closest to him often describe his compassion first. Perhaps that's why, even after decades in the spotlight, his reputation has remained remarkably positive. Yet despite everything his family endured, Vince never stopped creating music. If anything, life's hardships seemed to deepen his songwriting. Today, he often says he's writing some of the best songs of his career, not because they're destined to become massive commercial hits, but because they reflect genuine life experience. Age has changed his perspective. When he was younger, success often meant chart positions, radio play, and industry recognition. Now, his priorities are different. He no longer feels the need to chase trends or imitate whatever happens to be popular. Instead, he writes songs that feel honest. He has explained that songwriting isn't about forcing ideas onto paper simply to meet a deadline. Great songs, in his view, begin with meaningful experiences. Without a strong idea, inspiration simply can't be manufactured. That philosophy has influenced his collaborations as well. Over the years, Vince has worked comfortably across multiple genres. Whether performing country classics, appearing alongside the Eagles, or collaborating with artists from different musical backgrounds, he approaches every project with the same mindset. Leave your ego at the door. He has often said that the best collaborations happen when nobody worries about who receives the credit. It's a surprisingly humble attitude in an industry where recognition often becomes the primary goal. Perhaps that's also why musicians continue seeking opportunities to work with him. Talent may open doors. Character keeps them open. Even now, Vince remains deeply connected to traditional country music through his ongoing relationship with the Grand Ole Opry. Although he embraces musical evolution, he never loses sight of the traditions that shaped him. Every new song, every performance, and every collaboration reflects the same values that guided him decades ago. Respect the music. Respect the audience. Respect the people sharing the stage. So what exactly did Vince Gill finally confirm? The answer isn't a shocking secret or a dramatic confession. Instead, the source behind the rumors reveals something much more meaningful. He openly acknowledged why he accepted the invitation to join the Eagles, not to replace Glenn Frey, but to help preserve one of music's greatest legacies with humility and respect. He has also spoken candidly over the years about the patience behind his relationship with Amy Grant, the unfair public assumptions they faced, and the life-changing health challenges that strengthened their marriage. In many ways, those admissions aren't sensational at all. They're deeply human. At 67, Vince Gill's greatest legacy isn't simply measured by Grammy Awards, sold-out concerts, or legendary performances. It's measured by the consistency of his character. Whether supporting his wife through unimaginable health battles, honoring Glenn Frey's memory with the Eagles, or continuing to create heartfelt music without chasing headlines, Vince has shown that true greatness isn't always about standing in the spotlight. Sometimes, it's about quietly earning the respect that lasts long after the applause fades. And perhaps that's the real reason Vince Gill remains one of the most admired figures in American music today.